A wise person once said, "Don't burn bridges unless you absolutely have to." You may have heard at home, there's no reason to have enemies unless it's just necessary. Well, Disney is finding out the hard way that that's still true. Those old adages ring just as true for corporations as they do for individuals. And one individual in particular seems a little miffed at Disney, and rightfully so. Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. It's what we do each and every day here on the WDW Pro Channel. This is a fun video today because it is the very first time that we have had members select the topic. That's right, members of the Pro Channel, when they are at that Promium level, not premium, but Promium level, they are able to select the topic that we'll cover one time per week. This last time, because memberships are new, we opened it up to everybody, and I'm really excited about this topic. It was overwhelmingly selected. What we're going to be discussing is Ike Perlmutter's revenge. And we're going to be talking about the former Marvel exec who holds a huge chunk of Disney change, who has been let go by Robert Iger, sent packing by Horatio Gutierrez. And we're going to take a look at this and see what might be on the horizon for Disney, why they may have angered the wrong guy, and they may be hitting the, not the right hornet's nest in Florida that you want to upset. Before we do, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. Here we go. Ex-Disney exec Ike Perlmutter told Florida's DeSantis, "You're right," during public feud. This comes to us from the New York Post. It's by Thomas Barabi, April 6th, so this is a little bit old. We did cover this on the Valiant Renegade channel. However, we are going new places as soon as we hit this topic. We understand that this channel is growing and growing, so is the other channels around us, and so not everybody's heard this before. The newly ousted chairman of Disney-owned Marvel Entertainment said he once contacted Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to express his support for the Republican in his public feud with the Mouse House. Ike Perlmutter, the 80-year-old billionaire executive who was ousted in the first wave of Disney's recent layoffs, claims he was fired by the company due to his combative relationship with top brass. Not sure that's exactly how he framed it, but let's continue. The notoriously outspoken Perlmutter also revealed that he called DeSantis to voice his disagreement with Disney's decision last year to publicly lobby against the DeSantis-backed parental rights and education law, branded by critics as you-know-what. "Ron, you're right. Disney doesn't have the right to get involved with politics," Perlmutter said he told DeSantis on the phone call, according to the Wall Street Journal's report published Wednesday. He reportedly grew frustrated at Disney's involvement in the spat with DeSantis over the law which bars teachers in the state from discussing issues of the bedroom with children below a certain age. The businessman said he told Disney executives not to get involved in politics. "You're going to get hurt. It's a no-win situation," he said. And that essentially turned out to be true, as we have documented in the past using even an Axios poll. Disney, once it entered into politics, became seen in a political way. And the problem for any company that becomes political is, whereas you want the vast majority of the market to think of you in a positive manner and be interested in your widgets or services or whatever you sell, when you delve into politics, you necessarily then turn half of your audience against you, because you can't really take a position easily in politics that isn't opposed. That's the entire game. And so while maintaining perhaps a 50% approval rating, I don't know that Disney has that right now, but if they did have a 50% approval rating, that would be pretty good for a politician. For a corporation, it's terrible. And yet Disney has put themselves into these troubled waters where 50% is probably close to their ceiling now, because they are again seen as a political entity. Now, let's take a look at some more developments that have happened. I want to bring this to your attention, although I'm going to be very careful about reading this one. This is from The Real Deal. It's a real estate news article. You can find it, but I'm not going to go much farther into this article because I don't want to reveal the location of Ike Perlmutter and his new residence. But we do need to say that billionaire Ike Perlmutter, again, that's the Marvel executive who had for years talked about, well, you have to lower budgets and you have to increase sales, right? That was his criticism of Marvel. We've seen this coming through now. And by the way, there's been a recent article from Deadline, I believe, talking about Black Panther and how it made money. It made money. And that's a little bit dubious because if you go through that article, what you discover is that it was, in fact, a box office flop. That's what we've been saying, by the way, myself and Valiant Renegade. We've been saying that for months now. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was a box office flop. And then the Deadline article kind of does this twist where it says, oh, but it's made money through streaming now. And it's like, well, how? How did it do that? Because it's free on Disney Plus. So I don't really understand what's going on with that article other than it does prove that at the box office, at least, Black Panther Wakanda Forever did not succeed in making a profit. Now, Ike Perlmutter, major critic within Disney of how they were handling Marvel. We're starting to see some of the issues coming forth. Of course, Perlmutter is also not a perfect person. Nobody is. He has bought a $10 million oceanfront Palm Beach townhouse, and it says he bought it days after Disney fired him from Marvel Entertainment. Again, I'm not going to go down because it reveals the address, and I don't think that's appropriate. However, let me say this. The key point here is that Perlmutter is moving or purchasing. He has many homes, but he's purchasing this townhome, and it is very, very close to Mar-a-Lago. That is the location where former President Trump lives. Now that's key, and I don't do politics, but where it intersects with entertainment, I do have to just explain things, right? Explaining entertainment, that's what we do. Perlmutter is positioning himself where, when needed, he can be extremely close to President Trump, who potentially is going to be in the Republican primaries. He is the front runner, and we have all this drama surrounding that. We're not going to go into that. But Perlmutter is positioning himself so that he can be very close. Now, there's a key thing that needs to be understood here. In the post-Disney lifehood of Perlmutter, he is now taking a place where he can be highly influential inside Republican politics. What do we know about Republican politics right now? And especially with DeSantis, who seems to be using Disney as an ability to gain an upper hand over Trump, although that may not be the primary goal. He may legitimately be very upset or disgusted with Disney. Many of you are. But Perlmutter positioning himself in that way may be taking a position now where he will have the understanding and the information, the recognition of the inner machinations of Disney, and he can discuss all of that with high-level Republican leadership. He can assist in perhaps managing any sort of broadsides against Disney. We'll have to wait and see. But it's not lost on me that he has made this purchase. I don't want to go into where this is located other than say it's really close, and other people who are very connected politically with Trump are in this same townhouse complex. Okay, so why does all of that matter at all? Well, let's take a look at this. This came out actually just a few days ago, and I don't know that anybody has really covered it. It's from the Acquirer's Multiple. It's a blog. This one by Johnny Hopkins. Nelson Peltz. Now, who is Nelson Peltz? Peltz is the guy who has Trian Partners Group, and he attempted to do a proxy war with Disney. However, he stopped the proxy war because Disney essentially gave everything to him that he wanted outside of revealing their connections with China. But everything else they essentially gave. And so Peltz really didn't have a leg to stand on for the proxy war any longer. He had already won. He won without the battle. Well, since that point, the stock has dropped, and Peltz is a very, very good friend of Perlmutter. If you look at the amounts that these two individuals have, Perlmutter has something like $3 billion worth of Disney shares, and Peltz has something like $1 billion. You combine that, of course, it's $4 billion. But what they're looking to do, potentially, out of the 180 billion plus shares that exist for Disney, is if they decide that the amount of money, that the valuation of the stock drops below the amount for which they want it to be, let's say it drops below their buy-in rates, who knows, then they would have the option to once again wage a proxy war together. And they would do so potentially with lots of very angry shareholders. We just saw a shareholders meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, that was unlike anything I've ever seen. Now, I'm not attempting to give any of you financial advice. Please don't make any financial decision whatsoever based on what I'm telling you. I'm not your financial advisor. If you want to know what to do with your stocks and with your decisions financially, go find somebody who is qualified and certified in that area Go find an expert who can be your official financial advisor. I'm not that person. All I'm trying to tell you is that there are people who have been made into enemies of Disney, probably through only Disney's decisions, and they're not happy. Let's take a look now at what we have here with Nelson Peltz. And here's what we've got. During his recent presentation at FANA Forum, Nelson Peltz discussed the first thing you do as an activist investor. Here's an excerpt from the presentation. This is key because Nelson Peltz has said that although he dropped the proxy war, he's not opposed to returning to it, and he's watching carefully. Our formula at Trian and the formula that we invest is something I learned from my father who sold produce, and it's on every coffee cup in our office, and it's really simple. It says, sales up, expenses down. Wow, that matches exactly with what Perlmutter was saying about Marvel. When I learned that, I dropped out of Wharton and figured that's all I need to know. Sales up, expenses down. And that works whether it's a little produce company like my father owned or P&G, where I just recently got off the board, Procter & Gamble. That's what they all have to understand. Sales up, expenses down. And we preach that, and it seems so simple. They call McKinsey in, and they call all these brilliant guys in to figure out where it's going. And all they do is have to get a coffee cup for my office. That's all they have to do. They can take $25 million a year on these consultants. What do these companies need to do to grow? What do they need to do? Well, let me tell you one of the things they need to do. They need people on the boards of these companies that are truly independent, that have a vested interest. You know, every board, I started my career building businesses and happily built a very large packaging company and fixed up Snapple and did a bunch of fun things. And then I became what's called an activist investor, and it was really simple. You get into these companies, and the first thing you do when you walk into the boardroom is you look around the table and say, who here actually wrote a personal check to own stock in this company? And I want to tell you, every company whose board I've been on, I was the only guy in the room that did that. So tell me what they're doing there. What they're doing there is trying to make sure that they're going to stay there because they get hundreds of thousands of dollars in stock options and stock gifts. So they want to make the CEO happy. They were a CEO once, and they wanted their board to make them happy, so they try and give as good as they get. And then you can see the video there. We'll have a link in the description below. So Peltz has a particular viewpoint on how things are going. And then you have Perlmutter, who has that same viewpoint. You have the two men having combined large amounts of shares, and they will be looking potentially, if the proxy war returns, to find new individuals willing to partner with them. That would be the Perlmutter's revenge, right? Who knew that he had triple the numbers that Peltz had back when we were talking about all of this proxy war just a few months ago? But if we look here on Insider by Matthew Fox, this is from February 10th. This is back when we were looking at what was happening with Nelson Peltz. Activist investor Nelson Peltz reportedly scored a $150 million profit in his 3-month proxy fight against Disney. Now, the only thing I want to bring up here is that since then, the stock went down. And Peltz, we don't believe, sold any of that stock. And so that means that that $150 million has begun to decrease drastically. Now, if that continues, and if a negative outcome occurs for the box office this summer, if merchandising begins to drop for Disney, and if we see the market responding in the same way that that shareholders meeting did, then, well, there stands a good chance that Peltz and Perlmutter could find many allies, and they already have the political allies in place given the location that they're in. This truly is sort of a California versus Florida mentality here. And Palm Beach is ground zero for these men who are aligning politically, philosophically, and economically. And we will find out very soon, if Disney drops, will these men take action? It's going to be exceedingly interesting to me to watch. I am very interested in how Michael Eisner responds should the Disney stock drop. I don't know that will happen, but I'm watching it. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, and subscribe. You can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. And if you want to pick topics like the one from today, well, you'll need to be a member. It's at the tier 3 level, but there's so much more at those lower tiers if you want to get your feet wet first. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, folks, keep learning, keep growing. You know what? Keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.